The Black Business Council says it supports the call for a state of disaster declaration in response to the country's electricity crisis. That's after the ANC's NEC Lekgotla this past weekend resolved to look into the legalities around such a declaration. We can speak now to the Council CEO, Kganki Matabane, who's joining us. A very good evening to you, sir. Welcome back to News at Prime. So you've made it clear that you would support such a declaration. What do you think it would achieve that the past 15 years of work on load shedding have not been able to do?
Good evening, Tebekile and the Newzroom Afrika viewers. We indeed support the declaration of the state of disaster, mainly because we were in a crisis. And when you're in a crisis and a disaster like this, you need to behave like you're in a crisis. It can't be business as usual. And then we said, for example, when we were engaging with the other stakeholders, we said to them, firstly, they must make sure that they don't use this opportunity to loot the state resources. They need to utilize it to do exactly what it's supposed to do. The intention is to make sure that we all rally around ESCOM and fixing ESCOM and making sure that we move from where we are, stage 5, stage 6, to at least stage 2, stage 1, or no load shedding at all. Mm-hmm. And then that can only be done if we want to do it in the next 6 months, 12 months. We can only do it if we say, let's look at the processes that may be delaying the procurement of certain material that we need to fix these power stations. And let's use the state of disaster to then make sure that the process moves much, much faster.
And one of the calls you've made is to look at the restructuring, basically, of roles for regulatory bodies, one of them NERSA, for example, Treasury as well, I think you said in your statement. To what effect and in what way?
So when you look at, for example, every year when there's negotiations on tariffs, there are always almost like squabbles between different role players, between NERSA, National Treasury, ESCOM, and you may have had the president after NERSA has passed the tariffs, that the tariffs must be increased, saying that he has instructed ESCOM to stop the implementation. So that is not healthy on its own. So that process needs to be harmonized in such a way that we're not going to be getting those squabbles in the media. The negotiations should happen as quickly as possible, so that ESCOM, when they calculate their own budgets, they know for the next year, for the next 2 years, for the next 5 years, we've got so much so that they can budget enough money for maintenance. Because without maintenance and without fixing the current ESCOM power stations, we're not going to stop load shedding. All these other proposals about getting solar, getting wind energy, it's not going to solve the problem, because some of these projects are going to be only coming on online in the next 2-3 years. And we've got a current problem that is affecting businesses, is affecting everyone in South Africa.
So how do you do all of that without muddying the waters and interfering with the independence of each of these institutions, because they all have a very clear mandate and one is not, quote unquote, supposed to push the other into a corner in any way?
Yes, but remember, we're in a crisis. So when you're in a crisis, you need to look at other things that are almost delaying you being able to get yourself out of the crisis. And when you look at other countries like Germany, they've done a similar thing where they said, we're in a crisis. We need to make sure that all of us as a country, we come together. And some of these processes that are going to delay us in solving our energy crisis, we need to put them aside for a period, not forever, because if you put them forever, then you are getting into some dictatorship of some sort. So we need to agree on a period, either 6 months or 12 months, but then we need to agree on specific actions that need to be taken by who, by when, and who's going to be held accountable. But when you're in a crisis, you can't behave like things are normal, like they were some 15 years ago.
Okay.
We need to make sure that we get out of this crisis so that the economy can grow and we can create jobs that we need as a country.
So by the ANC's estimate, if this goes ahead with the declaration in place, it would take about 12 months or so to basically deal with the problem. Do you trust that timeline, given the number of promises that have been unmet around the issue of the power cuts?
We met with the presidency, and also the ESCOM leadership was there, and they presented the plan that we think makes sense, and that plan estimates that to get to what is called energy availability factor of 70%, which will basically stop load shedding. It will take 2 years, and we believe that is the more realistic one, because it's an engineering problem. The ESCOM board does not necessarily want to fix something today in 3 months' time is broken again. They need to use tested and trusted engineering methods in making sure that when they say to us, power station 1 is sorted, it must be sorted forever. We don't want to go back where we're using temporary measures to solve the problem that we should have solved a long time ago. So we need to believe and we need to believe in the engineers when they tell us that this can only be solved in 18 months or 2 years.
One of the other suggestions in the brief that you've put out today is that we also need to see a mass rollout of rooftop solar PV, right? Especially for lower income South Africans. So that would be people who count in households that count into the millions. How do we do that in a way that is credible, that also does not become a feeding frenzy for the corrupt? Because the last time we had a mass state of disaster declaration in this country was with COVID, and we all know how the corruption story went around that.
Yes, what we are suggesting, we're saying the Auditor General and the audit companies that they appoint to look after this must audit the process even at the beginning, because what happened last time, they audit the process at the end, and by that time it's too late to do anything. So the process must be audited at the beginning and audited continuously, so that there's no opportunity for anyone who wants to loot to loot. And then the reason why we're calling for this is that there should be a way. We cannot, for example, we cannot call for the subsidization of the rich, because that way we're going to perpetuate the inequalities that we have in South Africa. So there must be more opportunities of subsidization that is going to the poor, so that we can encourage them, at least because they cannot afford, encourage them to get out of the grid in a way, so that we can manage the demand. But at the end of the day, if we want to resolve the energy crisis that we're having now, the only credible way is to fix ESCOM, or we need to buy what is called dispatchable energy or baseload energy that solar and wind cannot give. So we need to buy it from people like car power sheets and others who will be able to give us the load that we can use, or the energy that we can use as and when we need to use it.
Okay. Mr. Kganki Matabane, good to speak to you. Thank you so much. Just a pity we're out of time.